Hello everyone, boys and girls. It's good to see you here again. This video is going to talk about our composition sample in order to prepare you better for the coming examination, where you will have both the reading paper and the writing paper. And so obviously this video will help you do better, hopefully. Now, the topic that we last wrote on was 2012, taken from the DSE, which is a practice paper, by the way. It's not the real exam paper. Is instead the practice paper, because 2012 was the very first year when the DSE examination was launched. Anyway, here is the topic. Your friend is going for a job interview for the position of part-time promoter for a mobile phone company. It will be a group interview. Your friend is very nervous and has asked you for your advice. Write an email to your friend offering advice on how to prepare for the interview and what to do during the interview. So a few keywords here is a job interview, and is for this position as a part-time promoter, and it is also for a mobile phone company, and he will be attending a group interview, and you are writing to give advice, and it's an email, alright, and preparing him or telling him how to prepare for the interview and what to do during the interview. So basically the topic is rather straightforward. So let's call my friend Dear Chris. So the email goes as below. Now you should be having also a handout with blanks left, words left out. What you're given just some blanks, and so you're supposed to go through the whole video here. As you go along with me, my commentary, you will have to fill in the blanks for your reference, and of course you try to interact with this video. Now let's go through this email paragraph by paragraph. Dear Chris, the email starts. How's everything going? I'm excited to hear about your upcoming interview. So it's very general opening. You ask about his recent happenings and say that you're excited. However, although at the same time feeling sad to hear that. Although I'm sorry also to know that you're quite perplexed, meaning confused, and distressed, very desperate about the unknowns. The unknowns, of course, are from the upcoming interview, so I try not to repeat the same word interview, and instead I try to rephrase it using the word unknowns, because there are actually a lot of unknowns in the upcoming interview. So on one hand I'm excited, on the other hand I'm also sorry to know that you are quite perplexed and distressed about the unknowns. So you see, I have deliberately used some abbreviations, short forms here, to show that I'm conscious, I'm aware of the fact that this is an personal email to my friend, so therefore I have to adopt a more informal tone. Rest assured though, meaning that, well, worry not, my friend, you don't have to worry. Rest assured. So when you say this, you mean that you are asking someone not to worry, because I'm going to give you some comfort. Yeah. So as in this sentence, you may rest assured that you will be ready on time. Alright? So I'm asking him to feel safe. Don't worry too much. Rest assured, though. You have reached out to the right person. Well, that's the reason why he can be not worry, because Chris, you have reached out to the right person, which is me. and I've been through some similar trials, so I try to show that I understand the feeling totally, and because I've been through some similar trials. I'm using the word trials here because, well, having an interview is a real test to one's character, let's say, to one's abilities, for example. So I'm using the word trials here. I've been through some similar trials, so I know exactly what it is like. Showing empathy is important in giving advice to another person. So that's how you may show that you feel the same, you can understand. I have your back. Now a very supportive tone being shown here. I know I have your back, I know exactly what it is like, and before I give my advice, here is a lead-in sentence. Here are a few reminders for you before as well as during the interview. So a few tips, a few reminders, and I hope the following points could ease your nerves. Well, I know that my friend must be feeling very nervous at the moment, so I hope my following tips, my following reminders, my following points could ease his nerves. So that's the introduction. Alright. Asking about the reason happening, responding very briefly by telling him your emotions is a mixed feeling. Trying to show some comfort, trying to show some support, showing empathy here, showing support and encouragement, and then finally you lead into your first piece of advice. Advice, by the way, is uncountable, so you don't say advices. First off, a relatively casual expression here. It's like first of all to begin with, but first off, it sounds more casual and conversational. First off, self-introduction. So you see, I try to include some longer sentences like this, a very long sentence here, but sometimes I deliberately use a shorter one here to give a better balance between complexity and simplicity in my writing. So a long sentence followed by a short one, and then now a very short sentence. First off, self-introduction. Now you can do it in a casual piece of writing like this email of advice. Many candidates, people who apply for a job applicant, many candidates, they make the mistake of piling up their introductions with boring facts, which are regrettably as monotonous, as monotonous as their resumes, So when I'm talking about self-introduction, giving tips on this area, I start with the common mistakes that are made by other candidates. Many of them think that they make the mistake of this, giving very boring facts about the past. But here is my piece of advice. Do not simply state your past achievements, though. A very long sentence, again, followed by a very short one, stating very clearly my suggestion, my tip, my reminder. The recruitment panel has already pored over your CV. CV is another word for resume, or at least a very, very similar word. The recruitment panel, the interviewer, the panel of people who come to interview you. So here is another expression I'm trying to introduce with my sample. To pour over, that is to read very carefully, pour over something, to read or look at something very carefully for a long time. So I suppose the panel has already poured over your CV, so you don't have to state your past achievements. They can read it all on your CV. So what should you do instead? Instead, what should you do? This is what you should do. Instead, make a succinct summary of your past experience. A succinct summary. Succinct summary is a summary without any redundancy. A succinct summary is a summary that clearly expresses the idea in just a few words. A synonym will be concise, so there is no redundancy, no useless words. A succinct summary of your past experience. Instead, just keep it very short. Keep it short. You don't have to pile up with boring facts. Just make it short, concise, and succinct. And then focus immediately on the abilities and potentials that feed on the company's interests. Instead of making a long story of your past achievements, why not focus on the abilities and potentials that feed on the company's interests, that the company is more interested in? Like what? Well, like this. Mention an anecdote. Mention an event. Mention an incident. Mention an anecdote that explains, that shows, that displays, that illustrates a skill that can be transferred to the post you are applying for. In other words, instead of detailing your past achievements, try to highlight one event, one incident, one skill that can be relevant to the post that you're applying for. Make it relevant to the company. So that's the main idea here. And a quick conclusion here, because this is a first tip. I've got a number of other tips down there. So it's time for me to close it. If you follow my advice, you surely will stand out from the crowd. You surely will stand out from the crowd. So tip number 1, work on the self-introduction. Keep it succinct and make it relevant. Next tip, paragraph 3, next tip. Naturally, equipping yourself with, you equip somebody with. Equipping yourself with the basic knowledge and expertise of your desired position is also the key to success. So, very long gerund subject here. This whole thing is also the key to success. What is that? That means prepare yourself with basic knowledge and expertise of the position that you're applying for. This whole thing is the key to success. In other words, so you see, try to connect ideas with this and that. So you see the logical flow here. Alright, so say this instead, if. Alright, first off, it's a very useful expressions. You don't have to say, what first, second, next, moreover. There are many different ways to do the same thing. In other words, let me go back here. In other words, research is of utmost importance. So what I mean here is that, well, come on, Chris, do some research on your job, on the position, on the company. And in this case, let me elaborate. In this case, it is a promoter for a mobile phone company that you are applying for, that you are after. So if you go back to the situation, I'm referring to exactly this part to show the marker that I know full well what I'm writing about. So in this case, it is this position that you are after, Chris. So do you have adequate enough knowledge of the following questions? And here are 3 questions that I'm asking Chris. And they are: how is a mobile phone company run? How does the mobile phone market work? And what skills are required of the position? something to do with this company, something to do with this market, and something to do with this position that that he is applying for. So to put it simply, research, and make sure you know the answers to all these 3 questions. Needless to say, having a good grasp of this profession, of this area, of this field, of this industry can drastically, immensely, hugely, dramatically increase your chance of being selected. So it's all about equipping yourself with the knowledge and the expertise. It's all about research. So I'm still centering on the same idea with this phrase, having a good grasp of the profession, having a good understanding of the profession. So so you see, the whole paragraph is framed around one single idea, that is, get to know the position that you are applying for. Alright, and this is how you can elaborate on a tip, on an idea. So that's tip 2. So far so good. Tip 3. Now, once you are equipped with the insider's perspective, so you see, this is like a follow-up to the previous paragraph. So you have equipped with basic knowledge and expertise, and now the rephrased version will be the insider's perspective. Once you are ready with that, once you are equipped with that, you're ready for the next step. Tip number 3, namely, rehearsal. So let me just go back to the first point. My first tip is all about self-introduction. The second tip is about research. The third tip is about rehearsal. Rehearse, practice. So why rehearse? Why do we have to rehearse for an interview? Because it can be immensely conducive to your confidence. So using a relative clause here, I'm trying to explain the importance of rehearsal, because it can be conducive to your confidence. It helps build your confidence. Alright? So namely, that is the next step. You are ready for the next step, that is rehearsal. Namely, rehearsal. Why? Well, which can be immensely conducive to your confidence. At the same time, you try to keep stage fright at bay. I remember introducing this phrase before. To keep something at bay. To keep something at bay. That is, well, you try to keep a distance from that. You try to avoid it. So in order to get rid of stage fright, in order to avoid stage fright, you know, sometimes when you get to the stage, you feel panicky, you are panic stricken, you get very nervous, you shake your hands and you sweat, and you can't deliver what you're supposed to deliver. That is stage fright. So I'm telling Chris that if you want to keep stage fright away, if you want to keep it at bay, what do you have to do? You have to consider the questions that may be asked, and then you have to practice answering them in front of the mirror for several times. Alright, so these with that, I'm offering 2 tips. Well, actually they are one single tip, and they all refer to the keyword here, rehearsal. That is, well, try to think about the questions beforehand and try to practice before in front of a mirror, and if possible, get someone to give you a mock interview beforehand, a mock interview, a trial, a practice, a rehearsal, and this way you could simulate the stressful atmosphere of the interview, which is a good thing. Why? Because because it allows you to get accustomed to extracting things that you have prepared, even in such a stressful environment, even in such a suffocating environment, an environment where you can't breathe because you are so nervous. So that's the good thing about rehearsing, because it allows you to get used to extracting things that you have prepared in such a stressful environment. So once again, if you look at the layout, the flow of the whole paragraph, it all centers on one word, rehearsal. So you lead in and introduce your third tip, explain very briefly why it helps, and you elaborate on the idea, how can I rehearse? There are two things that you can do to rehearse. And then a third thing that you may do, if possible, something that you may be able to do to prepare. And I'll round up here. So that's the good thing about rehearsing. So that's my tip number 3. Number 4, let's move on. So to get ready for the interview, another rule of thumb. So tip number 4 coming is to look smart. Something about the look, the appearance, the packaging. Alright. Now let's continue. So you see, it's a longer sentence again. I'm following it with a short one. You are what you wear. And then first impressions matter. So I'm trying to show why looking smart is important. Because if you look smart, you are showing that you are smart. You are what you wear. And first impressions matter a lot, especially in an interview. So an explanation to the keyword looking smart. 1 and 2, 2 short sentences. So you see, you try to create a rhythm with longer sentences and shorter sentences. You try to strike a balance between complexity and simplicity, variety, but at the same time clarity. Now let's continue. Some more elaboration. What exactly do I have to do if I want to look smart? You may not want to wear a suit, but at least wear something more proper for the occasion, for the interview. So I don't want to repeat the word interview for too many times, and here I'm using the word the occasion. Alright, that occasion, that situation. So that's a further elaboration to the tip looking smart. So some more detail. You may want to iron your shirt, shine your shoes, and have a nice haircut even. And then don't forget, chin up and wear a smile, wear a confident smile. Alright, so it's from the look to your face to your whole composure. Get yourself ready, help yourself look smart, chin up, wear a smile before the interview starts. And so a sentence of rounding up, convince them that you're responsible and trustworthy. That is why looking smart is so important, because it has everything to do with first impressions, that you can show them that you're responsible and that you are trustworthy and you deserve winning the position, in other words. So that is tip number 4. Now moving on, I have a 1 sentence paragraph there to take a break before we move on to the next tip. I hope it is all manageable so far. Well, once again, because I know that it's a letter to a friend, it's an email to a friend, supposed to carry a more informal tone. It allows more informality there, more casual tone there. So I have deliberately created a one sentence paragraph so that I'm trying to let my friend Chris have a break. I hope it's all manageable so far. Because so far I've already given him 4 tips, and I hope that the 4 tips Chris may manage all of them. Now the last tip. Now the tricky part. If they all sound like cliche to you, here is one more concerning the group interview. Once again, of course, I'm pointing at deliberately the keywords here. It will be group interview, so let us not forget that in this interview, Chris is going to work with some other people, some other candidates. Now the tricky part, group interview. Now again, a very short sentence broken into a few parts. Now the tricky part, dash, group interview, to give it more rhythm. And of course, because this is an informal email, I'm allowed to do it. Of course, everyone knows that it's vital to speak up, to make eye contact, and to avoid fidgeting on the seat. So they are very common tips, but I'm not going to tell you things that you already know, because everyone knows it. Chris, you know it too. I'm just listing them, but I know that you already knew them. So what is the tricky part? So I'll jump to what's often misunderstood. You see, I'm trying to use short forms here and there to show that I know full well that this is an informal email. So I'll jump to what's often misunderstood, transition from the common to the uncommon. What is so uncommon here? While many candidates have the misconception that winning a group discussion is the same as, is equal to, is equivalent to winning the job, so many people have a mistaken idea that if they win the group discussion, they win the job. But no. You should not concern yourself with dominating conversation. This is not true. So this is what I meant by the tricky part, because many people have this misconception, and I'm now correcting that by telling you that you should not dominate a conversation. You should not only try to win the group discussion, because it doesn't mean that you will win the job eventually. What do you have to do then? Bear in mind. So remember that. Remember this. I'm telling you, you have to remember this. You remember this. Bear in mind that the company is more keen on recruiting a team player rather than a dictator. And therefore, you don't try to dominate. You don't try to win. You try to work with the other candidates because they want to have a team player rather than a dictator. And therefore, further elaboration, therefore, be open to compromises. Be open to different ideas. Be ready that you give away a stance and take in new stances. Be open to compromises. And at the same time, you never try to force others into agreeing with you, taking the same stance. No, it won't always happen like that. Always find flexible ways to communicate and cooperate with others. So that's my last tip for a group interview. You don't dominate, you don't try to win the group discussion, but you try to be a team player. You try to be open to compromises. You don't force people. You try to be flexible, and you try to communicate and cooperate with others. And this is how you can impress your potential, your future employer. So you see, this is my final tip, all about how to behave in a group interview. and here are my final tips. And so you see the flow from the simpler ones, the more obvious ones, to the more tricky ones concerning a group interview in particular. So quite enough there. So you see I've written for about let's see, it's around 500 words already. It's time to stop. It's time to bring it to an end. So I know that you must be a bundle of nerves at the moment. I know that you are feeling very terribly nervous right now, but I'm convinced, I'm sure that you can pull this off. You can handle this. You can get it done if you have the proper preparation. In other words, if you follow my advice up there, you will be fine. If you follow my advice, you will stand out. You will pull it off. You will pull this off if you have the proper preparation according to my tips. And before I stop, before I end my letter, here are some final words. What are they? Some words of wisdom. Don't be disappointed even if you fail to get in. So, well, despite my many useful practical tips here, there is still a possibility that Chris may fail, and that's why I want to say it here with my final reminder, with some final words. Don't be disappointed even if there is a chance that you may still fail. There are loads of other jobs waiting for you, and always remember, failing to get this one just means that they are looking for someone else. You may fail at the end, but don't be disheartened, because that only means that they are looking for some other person to fit the job, and it doesn't mean that you are worthless. It doesn't mean that you are without any value. It doesn't mean that you are without any ability. Alright? So with that, I'd like to comfort my friend and to prepare him better for the interview. Especially prepare him for the slim chance that he may still lose the job, even though he tried very hard to prepare for it. So I think that may be a more proper ending. And finally, of course, some closing words. If you have any other questions, any other inquiries, let me know. I'll always be there for you. Again, show that you are supportive, show that you have his back, show that you are there for him all the time, and of course, you look forward to some kind of reply. I look forward to some good news from you soon. Keep in touch, stay in touch. Regards, or best, or love if you like. So this is the letter to my friend Chris. Alright, sorry guys. Anyway, so let me call myself Sam. So I hope you like this sample. Actually is a compilation of a few different sources by some of your classmates. And so I want to give credit to the writers of the outstanding pieces. Thank you for your input, and of course I put a lot of effort putting everything together, and I hope you like the final version here, and I hope you benefit from it. So now that you have completed watching the whole video, and if you make some effort in memorizing a few phrases here and there, if you also making an effort to look at how ideas can be organized and put together and elaborated and presented, then I'm sure that you're ready for the coming examination, the writing examination. So boys and girls, all the best to you. I hope you can give your best in the coming paper. See you guys, and take care. I look forward to seeing you again soon in the classroom. Bye.